If you're in a long-term heterosexual relationship and you've ever wondered whether your sex life is actually working, for both of you, this video is going to give you the most honest, science-backed answer you've probably ever heard. Because there is a measurable, well-documented gap between how often men and women experience orgasm in partnered sex, and almost no one talks about it openly. I'm Dr. Maya Brooks, sexual health educator and relationship specialist, and today I'm walking you through the actual science of female orgasm, what it is, why it works the way it works, and what every couple needs to understand to close the gap that most couples don't even know exists. In partnered heterosexual sex, men reach orgasm approximately 95% of the time. Women reach orgasm only 65% of the time on average, and in many studies that number drops to 35% in casual encounters. This is known as the orgasm gap. It is not biological inevitability. It is the most well-documented inequality in human sexuality, and it exists for very specific, fixable reasons. So let's start with what most couples never get told. The orgasm gap is not because women are harder to please. It is not because their bodies are more complicated. It is not because they need something mystical or unknowable. The gap exists because most couples, and most of our cultural script around sex, are organized around male orgasm as the default endpoint. Penetration is treated as the main event. Everything else is treated as preparation. And for the female body, that script is almost perfectly designed to skip the very things her body actually needs to reach orgasm. The data is remarkably clear on this. Women in lesbian relationships report orgasm rates of approximately 86%, nearly identical to men in any context. The same female bodies, completely different outcomes, based entirely on what kind of stimulation, pacing, and focus the relationship is built around. The gap isn't in the body. The gap is in the script. This single piece of research, more than any other, changes how couples should think about what's happening between them. If the same female body can reach orgasm 86% of the time in one context and 35% of the time in another context, the variable isn't the body. The variable is what's happening around the body. The stimulation, the timing, the focus, the pacing, the understanding. And that means orgasm for women is not a mystery to be solved or a skill to be acquired. It's a context to be created. And that context is something any couple, in any relationship, can actually build, if they understand what it requires. The orgasm gap closes almost entirely when three specific conditions are met. Stimulation focuses on the clitoris in some form, the woman has enough time without pressure, and her partner treats her orgasm as a real goal, not a bonus. Couples who meet these three conditions report orgasm rates above 80%. Couples who don't, regardless of how much they love each other, report rates below 50%. Reason number 2, and this is the one where most couples have been working from completely incorrect information their entire adult lives. Because what most people learned about female anatomy, from school or from porn or from cultural script, is fundamentally wrong about how the female body actually reaches orgasm. And once you understand the real anatomy, everything that hasn't been working in your sex life will suddenly make sense. The clitoris is not what most people think it is. It is not a small button. It is not just an external organ. It is a much larger, more complex structure that extends deep into the body. And the way it actually functions has been misunderstood for decades. The clitoris is approximately 9 to 11 centimeters in size, about the length of an average penis. Only the small external glands is visible. The rest extends internally as two arms called the crura and two bulbs of erectile tissue that wrap around the vaginal canal. This entire structure is what creates orgasm in women, not the vagina itself and not the elusive G-spot as a separate organ. This is the single most important anatomical fact most couples have never been told clearly. The vagina, on its own, has very few nerve endings, particularly in its inner two-thirds. The intense pleasure women feel during penetration is almost always coming from indirect stimulation of the internal clitoral structure through the vaginal walls. This is why most women, between 70 and 80%, cannot reach orgasm from penetration alone. Not because anything is wrong with them, because the anatomy literally does not provide enough direct clitoral stimulation through penetration alone for most women. Approximately 70 to 80% of women cannot reach orgasm from penetration alone. This is not a dysfunction, it is the statistical norm. Women who can reach orgasm from penetration alone are the minority, and even for them, the orgasm is happening through indirect stimulation of the internal clitoral structure, not through anything happening in the vagina itself. Once couples understand this, the entire conversation about female orgasm becomes simpler. The question stops being, "Why can't she orgasm from sex?" and becomes, "Are we including direct or indirect clitoral stimulation as part of what we're doing together?" If the answer is yes, orgasm becomes likely. If the answer is no, orgasm becomes unlikely, for anatomical reasons that have nothing to do with the woman, the relationship, or the attraction between two people. And here's the part most people miss completely. Clitoral stimulation does not have to mean using only fingers or stopping intercourse entirely. It means making sure, in whatever form, the clitoris is part of the experience. Clitoral stimulation can take many forms during partnered sex. Positions that allow direct contact, manual touch during penetration, a partner's hand or her own hand involved, or external tools used together. The form matters less than the principle. The principle is simple. If her orgasm is the goal, the clitoris has to be part of the experience. Skipping it doesn't make sex more real. It just makes orgasm less likely. Reason number 3. Even when couples understand the anatomy correctly, there's another piece most of them get wrong, and it has to do with timing. The female body does not move from non-aroused to orgasm-ready quickly. It moves through a measurable physiological sequence that takes significantly longer than most couples realize, and skipping any part of that sequence reduces the likelihood of orgasm dramatically. This is not psychological. It is documented physiology, observable in clinical research, and it explains why so many couples have sex regularly, but the woman rarely finishes. They're not failing at sex. They're working against the biological timeline. Female arousal moves through 4 physiological phases: excitement, plateau, orgasm, and resolution. The excitement phase alone takes an average of 10 to 20 minutes for full physiological response. Vaginal lubrication, clitoral engorgement, increased blood flow to genital tissues, elevated heart rate. Most couples spend 2 to 5 minutes on this phase. That is biologically insufficient for most women. This is the single most important timing fact most couples never learn. When the female body has not fully completed the excitement phase, her physiology is simply not ready for orgasm. Her tissues are not engorged enough. Her nervous system has not fully shifted into the parasympathetic state required. Her body has not transitioned out of daily life mode. And no amount of intense effort later in the encounter can compensate for skipping this foundational period. It is like trying to bring water to a boil by turning the heat on for 30 seconds and then expecting it to boil within 2 minutes. The physics does not work that way. Neither does her physiology. During the plateau phase, the period between full arousal and orgasm, women experience the most intense physiological changes: maximum clitoral and vulvar engorgement, vaginal expansion and tenting, peak heart rate, and breathing changes. This phase typically requires 10 to 30 additional minutes for most women. Combined with the excitement phase, the average woman needs 20 to 50 minutes of consistent stimulation to reach orgasm. This range, 20 to 50 minutes, is the part that shocks most couples when they first hear it. Many men assume that if a woman is not approaching orgasm within 5 to 10 minutes, something is wrong. Nothing is wrong. The biological clock for female orgasm is simply different than most couples realize. And once couples understand this and adjust their expectations and pacing accordingly, orgasm becomes dramatically more likely. It's not that the woman has been resistant, it's that the timeline was never given enough room to actually complete. Time, more than technique, is the most underused tool in heterosexual couples' sex lives. The single most reliable predictor of female orgasm in partnered sex is total time spent on arousal and stimulation. Studies consistently show that when couples extend their full encounter to 25 to 45 minutes, female orgasm rates rise to 70 to 85%. When encounters last under 15 minutes, female orgasm rates drop below 40%. Time is the cheapest, most powerful intervention available. Reason number 4. Even with perfect anatomy understanding and perfect timing, there is one more piece of female orgasm that most couples almost never address, and it has nothing to do with the body. It has to do with the brain. Female orgasm is, more than male orgasm, profoundly dependent on what is happening in the mind during sex. Not the technique, not the partner's effort, not even the physical sensation alone. The brain is the most powerful sexual organ for women, and if it isn't fully engaged in the experience, even perfect physical stimulation will not produce orgasm. Brain imaging studies show that during female orgasm, more than 30 distinct brain regions activate simultaneously, including regions responsible for emotional safety, self-perception, memory, and bodily awareness. Meanwhile, during orgasm, the brain's anxiety center, the amygdala, must significantly deactivate. Without that deactivation, the body simply cannot complete the response. Anxiety blocks orgasm at the neurological level. This is why so many women report that they almost get there, but can't quite finish. It is not a physical issue. It is a brain issue. The amygdala, the part of the brain that handles fear and self-monitoring, has not gone offline. And as long as that part of the brain is active, the orgasmic response is biologically blocked. This explains why women report that they cannot orgasm when they're worried about being interrupted, when they're tracking the time, when they're thinking about how they look, when they're worried about taking too long, or when they feel emotionally unsafe in any way during sex. The brain is doing exactly what it's designed to do: protect the body. And that protection blocks the response. The most common mental blocks to female orgasm: self-consciousness about how the body looks or sounds, worry about taking too long and frustrating the partner, distraction by daily life thoughts, performance anxiety about whether orgasm will happen, and emotional unsafety with the partner. Any single one of these can block the response, no matter how skilled the physical stimulation. This is where the partner's role becomes essential, and most partners have never been told what they actually need to do. A partner's job during female orgasm is not to deliver technique. It is to remove the conditions that block the response. That means making her feel beautiful and wanted without making her self-conscious. That means having genuine patience without making her feel rushed. That means being present and engaged without making her feel watched. The skilled lover is not the one with the best techniques. It's the one who creates the mental conditions in which her body feels safe enough to actually let go. What a partner can actually do to enable female orgasm: communicate consistent enjoyment and patience. Eliminate visible signs of frustration or impatience. Avoid asking, "Are you close?" repeatedly. Stay present and focused throughout. And create an environment of absolute safety. The technique matters less than the climate. The climate is what allows the brain to release into orgasm. Reason number 5. So let's put all of this together into what every couple can actually do. Because understanding the science of female orgasm only matters if it changes what happens in your relationship. And here's the encouraging part: the changes required are not complicated. They don't require new techniques or new skills. They require new understanding, applied consistently. Most couples who close the orgasm gap don't do it through dramatic intervention. They do it through small, specific shifts in how they approach sex together. Shifts based on understanding what female orgasm actually requires. The 4 shifts that close the orgasm gap in long-term couples include clitoral stimulation as a core part of every encounter, not an optional add-on. Allow 20 to 50 minutes for the full arousal timeline. Create absolute mental safety and patience. Treat her orgasm as a real goal, not a bonus to male orgasm. Couples who consistently do these 4 things report orgasm rates above 80%. The most important shift, more than any of the techniques, is the shift in mindset. Most heterosexual couples have unconsciously organized their sex lives around male orgasm as the primary outcome. Her orgasm, if it happens, is a nice bonus. If it doesn't happen, the encounter still counted. This script is so embedded in culture that most couples never question it. But once a couple decides, explicitly, together, that her orgasm is just as much the goal as his, the entire structure of their sex life changes. Pacing changes, focus changes, attention changes, and the gap closes. Not because anything dramatic happened, because the goal finally included her. When her orgasm is treated as a real, equal goal, not a bonus, not an afterthought. The entire dynamic of partnered sex shifts. Pacing slows, focus widens, the clitoris stops being optional, time stops being rushed, and the gap that defines most heterosexual sex lives starts to close. Not in months, but often within a few intentional encounters. The shift in goal is the most powerful single change available. Here's what to do with everything you've heard. Don't try to fix all 4 shifts at once. Pick the one you and your partner have most been missing. For some couples, it's clitoral stimulation. For others, it's time. For others, it's mental safety. For others, it's treating her orgasm as a real goal at all. Pick one. Talk about it together, not as criticism, but as understanding. Try it for the next month. Watch what happens. Female orgasm is not a mystery. It is biology that responds to specific conditions. When those conditions are created, the body does exactly what it's designed to do. Female orgasm is not magic. It is biology. It responds to specific, knowable conditions. When couples understand the anatomy, give the body the time it needs, create mental safety, and treat her pleasure as a real goal, the body completes the response that nature designed it for. Most couples never learn this. The ones who do close the gap that the others live inside their entire relationships. If this video changed how you understand something important, share it with your partner, not as criticism, but as information you discovered together. Subscribe for more honest, evidence-based conversations about sexual health, intimacy, and how to build a sex life that actually works for both people in the relationship. Every couple deserves a sex life where both partners thrive. The science shows it's possible. You just have to apply it.